Hi everyone, my name is Natalie. Today I want to do another wrap-up video. Finally, I feel like it's been ages since I did my last one. It is the 21st to the 25th books of the year so far. So I'm going to start off with the non-fiction. First up we have Leap In, A Woman, Some Waves and the Will to Swim by Alexandra Heminsley. I've actually mentioned this in my non-fiction recommendations memoir edition video, which I will link in the description. I talked about this because it is a very specific type of memoir, basically a very goal-oriented one. So it follows Alexandra Heminsley as an adult deciding to learn or to relearn how to swim. So she sort of she wants to deconstruct the way that she's been swimming. So it is about her learning to swim properly, taking swimming lessons and taking up bigger and bigger challenges to do with her swimming, from swimming in a pool to swimming in the ocean, to swimming in rivers. It is a very goal-oriented and beautiful journey that she takes, and that she takes the reader with her. I found her really fun and inspiring. I really liked as well that she combines her personal narrative with some swimming history. So there is talk about like women's place in swimming and some of her feelings to do with the very male-centered type of atmosphere in a lot of the events that she decides to participate in. She talks about things like swimwear and breathing technique, and also about failures or feeling of failures and the facing of them head on, which is a part of why this is so inspiring. I am not a swimmer myself, but I found it to be applicable, a lot of the things, to yoga, which is something I do regularly. I think if you are at all an athlete or someone who enjoys exercise, and you enjoy sort of the process of someone learning something new and gaining knowledge and sharing that knowledge with other people, then this book might be for you. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I've written a full review of this, as I have all of the other books, and all of the reviews will be linked in the description. The other nonfiction book I read recently is E.H. Shepard, The Man Who Drew Pooh by Arthur R. Chandler. So I assumed that this was a biography. It is not quite a biography. It is, rather than being a biography of E.H. Shepard as a person, it is more a chronicling of E.H. Shepard as an artist. So this book is filled with art and sketches, photography of E.H. Shepard. And the text that goes along with it is mostly to give context to the art. He worked quite a long time, and so you see his progression as an artist, the kind of work that he did throughout his lifetime and how that changed, and you also see some of the things that he's most well known for, like his Winnie the Pooh sketches or his work for the illustrations of The Wind in the Willows. If you are looking for a resource for E.H. Shepard's art, it is a great volume to have. It is filled with illustrations like this. Some of them are even in color, like this. There's also photographs and a lot of other things. So it is smack filled with actual material. The text itself is very dry. It is not engagingly written at all. It is very to the point, very fact specific. Doesn't give you much in the way of E.H. Shepard as a person. Almost a point list type format of the book. E.H. Shepard supposedly requested that no biography came out about him until 30 years after his death, which the author mentions in the beginning of the book. So that is most likely the reason that the book itself lacks any emotional depth about the person E.H. Shepard was. The writing is focused on his achievements, the sort of information that you would find if you looked in someone's documents, in all of the papers that they collect over a lifetime. Next we have three classics, apparently, because that is just what I've been gravitating towards, it seems. First is a Swedish classic, and it is the Löwensköld and Charlotte Löwensköld. So these two are actually two separate novels, or the first is more like a novella, but they are part of a trilogy. The two stories are not actually that intertwined, so you don't really need to read them together to be able to follow along. But they are both historical fiction written by Selma Lagerlöf. The first one, the Löwensköld, is basically a Lord of the Rings type deal. It is about a ring that has been buried together with an important general, a ring that he was gifted by the king, and so the ring itself has a high monetary value, but it was also really important to the general that he be buried with it. But after his burial, the ring is stolen from his grave, and it ends up giving consequences to the person who stole it, and bring misfortune on them. So the first story is a ghost story. It's a very gothic story, very atmospheric. It has a lot of sort of the same vibe as The Treasure that I've mentioned in the winter recommendations video that I did a while ago. It is a story of redemption and retribution and revenge. Just a lot of fun. Very short and snappy, and she does the historical setting perfectly. The second story is about a woman called Charlotte, who is engaged to be married with a man who's to become a priest, training to become a priest, basically. At the beginning of the novel, they have had a big fight, and there's a lot of misunderstandings going on, and they end up breaking off the engagement. And the story follows as the misunderstandings about the woman and her supposedly calculating nature affects all of the lives included. So he has totally misunderstood her, and his perceptions of her changes the way that the people in the village that they live in view her, and so she faces a lot of gossip and hatred from the people around her about her sort of facing all of these things, and how she deals with it, and how she faces challenges and hurdles that life throws her. She's a fantastic character. She's really engaging, and the book itself is really immersive, which is the strongest impression I got of it, is that it was completely immersive. I lost myself in the book. I sometimes forget how comforting it is to read a book in your own language. I'm so used to reading in English now. That in itself added a lot to my enjoyment of this. But it is translated into English, so if you are curious about this, if you want some historical fiction set in Sweden, written by one of Sweden's most well-known and popular writers, then you might be interested in checking these out. Next we have a more well-known, internationally well-known classic, and it is Fahrenheit 451 by Bradbury. So this is obviously the third in the dystopian trio of classics, together with 1984 and Brave New World. So I read both of the other ones a few years ago, so this was a long time coming. The book itself is about Guy Montag, who is a fireman, and in this world, firemen start fires rather than put them out. This is a very well-known fact, the fact that he burns books, well-known even to people who haven't read the book. The book itself follows Montag as he is starting to question the way that the society of this world works, and questioning his own role in his profession, and he starts to resist. All of this is sort of brought about by his meeting with a young girl she's so different to everyone else he knows, and she sparks curiosity in him. He starts, as I said, to question all of the things that he has taken for granted for a very long time. So the feeling of his awakening is very much like he has been in a trance, and is waking up and starting to see all of the sort of the building constructions, all of the strings around him, while everyone else is still asleep. That is the feeling that you get when reading this book, and that is what gives it a very nightmarish vibe. Fahrenheit 451 focuses a lot more on the emotional impact of the world and being in it. than the other two dystopian classics do. I think that they are more focused on the political structure, what the society looks like and how it works. It is slightly different from the other two also in that it doesn't really have one big power or dictator. Instead, it is more like the control is so embedded into the system that it becomes second nature to them. So I found this really interesting as in the actual themes that it deals with and in the plot and the way that the story unfolds. But I also found Bradbury's writing style to be really interesting. He uses short phrases a lot and the repetition of words to change sort of the pacing of the book. He has such a control over the entire narrative through the writing, the pacing and the tone and the volume of the book, that is really interesting as far as the writing goes. Something that feels very specific to Bradbury's writing style and the reason I really want to read more of his work. So yeah, I had a lot of fun reading this and found a lot to sort of pick apart. It's a fantastic book. If you haven't gotten to it yet, definitely do so. Lastly, we have a book I loved, and it is The Enchanted April by Elizabeth von Arnim, which is a book I picked up on Mel's recommendation from Mel's Bookland Adventures. It is about 4 women who decide to share a villa in Italy over the month of April. So basically there's been an advertisement for this villa being rented out for the entire month of April, and a woman called Miss Wilkins sees the advertisement, feels like she's so ready to get away, and she approaches another woman who seems to need a vacation as well. They decide to share the apartment's rent, and then they invite 2 other women to share so they can split the money, the costs into 4. So they house share the San Salvatore villa, and it is about these 4 women coming together. They are quite different from each other. They have different life situations and things that they are sort of running away from, and they have different expectations on this month of relaxing in Italy. It is such a magical and fun and warm book. It is very welcoming and inviting. Mrs. Wilkins is one of the most charming characters I've ever come across. She is so filled with joy in this new place. She really comes to life in San Salvatore, and she has a great impact on the other people in the villa. All of the women are really fully portrayed. They have their own shortcomings, and you see how all of their shortcomings are there, but they also grow throughout the month, and how they get increasingly open as the time goes on, and how they eventually give in to Mrs. Wilkins' openness and the atmosphere of the place. It is warm through the characters and through their growth. You start to really feel like you know them. It is beautiful as a character study, but it is also beautifully written. Elizabeth von Arnim takes a lot of she focuses a lot on the nature around them and the blooming of nature, and how it also ends up mirroring the way that the characters grow. Really, really glad that I ended up picking this up because of Mel, and I will also be reading more von Arnim in the future because I loved her writing style aside from loving the characters so much. So this was an amazing book. Those are the 5 most recent books I've read in the year of 2018. If you've read any of these books, I would love to hear your thoughts about them, or if you have any recommendations based on these, especially the last one. I hope you're having a really good day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.